every single morning when I get up, I say a little prayer asking to be guided in my day to topics that would somehow be able to help resonate with or have some validity for my audience. And today I went and I listened to a podcast, and it was on mommy wine culture. Now, every morning I listen to a podcast by Natalie Bacon, who is a life coach and a mom coach. And while I don't have kids, she used to do financial literacy coaching and also online business coaching. I think she still does online business coaching, but she more focuses on life coaching for busy moms and people who want to get their life in order, juggling a million things. So this morning, I was listening to Natalie Bacon's podcast on Apple Podcasts, and she was talking about mommy wine culture. And some of the information that was in that podcast, for some reason, just really struck me. And I thought I would share it on a live broadcast, as well as doing some of my own research into the topic from a financial savings and investing point of view. Sorry, I have really bad allergies today. I don't know why. Whenever the weather in Hong Kong changes from being a little bit cooler back into getting a little bit warmer, it always just triggers all of these allergies that I never used to have. And frankly, in the past few years, I've had them, and they're just a bit intense. The hay fever and all that jazz. But sorry if I'm a bit snorty and coughing a little bit. It is just because my allergies are playing up. And even though I've taken antihistamine, this is my life. So, to the topic of today, alcohol, cost, cancer risk, and savings, $54,000 a year. I think thank you so much for joining, Stevie. Thank you so much for joining, Danny. So in the podcast, okay, that I was listening to this morning from Natalie Bacon, she mentioned some facts that I actually didn't know, and I found it quite interesting from a very non-judgmental point of view, okay? So please note, anyone who watches this replay, joins this broadcast, or is just anywhere on any platform viewing this is really just facts and information that are from research and non-judgmental. If you know people who are drinking a lot or you're drinking a lot, no judgment to yourself, please. This is not the space for it. Now is not the day for it. And frankly, judging yourself for anything doesn't actually change the results. It just makes you feel bad. And a lot of the time, we think making ourselves feel bad is going to motivate us to do something different. It doesn't work. We just do more of the thing that we're doing because it's comforting to us, because we're making ourselves feel bad. So it's this really strange logical fallacy cycle that we get into. And, all of these types of things are why I'm so interested in behavioral psychology, because we do stuff that just doesn't make sense, and we think it's going to get us better results, but it just doesn't. And it's just so counterintuitive sometimes, the things that will get us better results. So my financial literacy social enterprise, Money Mind, is all about helping people feel more empowered and confident about their money mindsets, the way they live with their personal finances, and just kind of hacking their life to get better results with their money without having to put in all this work. In terms of the basic foundational pillars of these 5 areas of financial stability: money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. So my theory is that I created these 5 pillars for myself and my own use when I was going through a very stressful time of my life. We were in a startup. Well, my husband was founding a startup, and I really realized that it had revealed all the gaps in my financial knowledge, right? I'd been through my early 20s, working hard, kind of doing stuff with money, but not really knowing what I was doing. And then realized that I had all these financial gaps. So I created this really easy 5-pillar plan in order to be able to say, here's a framework to just anyone can use right now as a checklist, and say, are my money mindsets good? Are my savings good? Are my budgeting habits good? Or at least expense tracking? Do I know where my money is going? Investing, is it good? Wills and legacy. Is it good? If you got these 5 pillars covered, this is the easiest, simplest thing I've ever seen in terms of have you got your money sorted out? Because if you've got these money foundations sorted out, you can build from there, right? And that's what I found really frustrating about finance in general, in terms of personal finance, that there was so much information and I didn't know where to start. And then I'd start in certain places and kind of stop and start. But I didn't have something that I could use as just a checklist that I could say, okay, where am I at in each of these at any point in my life? I can use it today, I can use it next month, I can use it next year, and I use it frequently to just check. I mean, like, for me, realistically, it's probably like once a day. I'm like, where am I at in these? Do I need to do some more cleanup in any of these areas, especially like money mindsets and budgeting for me, because they're not my strongest areas. So it helps me to just have this framework to keep an eye on where I'm at in each of these areas. And if we have these 5 pillars covered, we tend to be okay in our financial direction, right? You're not like completely avoiding or messing up your finances if you are good in all of these areas, or at least making headway in these areas. Money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. You got these down, you're going to be on the right path in terms of financial stability. So, regarding the alcohol cost, cancer risk, and savings, I did not know some of these facts, and I sort of thought it was interesting to just do a quick calculation on the numbers involved as well. So, no judgment, anyone. Don't judge yourselves. Focus on just information and absorbing knowledge and learning things, just in case it's interesting. So, apparently, like half the world doesn't drink alcohol, like at all. It's 48%, and it's like no alcohol. So that is, yeah, okay, we can say, oh, it's the world. There's lots of places that, alcohol is just not really used as much, and in social culture, blah, 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 blah. So that number jumps to 58%, almost 60% if you look at like within the past year. So it's either between like 45% to almost 60% within the past year of the world that doesn't drink. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's just sort of the world. And then I thought, oh, I'll just look at, like America and the UK and see what, those sort of rough averages are. So, Googling and doing, government research, statistic things, because I like reading that stuff. And so apparently in America, 33%, right, are non-drinkers. Like, we don't drink at all. And apparently, if you count light drinkers, it's closer to 50 again. It's 46% who have less than 3 drinks a week. So that's still pretty similar to the 50%. Now, if you go to the UK, it kind of jumps a little bit, where only 20% are non-drinkers at all, but 7 out of 10 who are in managerial positions or higher are inclined to drink and have drunk in the past week and generally tend to drink every week. So apparently stress is a big thing for a lot of drinkers. And what I heard on the podcast that I then researched and have found a lot of evidence to back up is that in 2020 alone, 4% of all cancer in the world was alcohol related. Like, I had no idea here, okay, that alcohol and cancer were a thing. So I was like, what? Like, we think like, oh, smoking will give us cancer. We think, oh, like having morbid obesity might increase our cancer risk. But I never really thought, oh, like drinking alcohol could increase my risk of cancer. And the top 3 cancers are throat cancer, liver cancer, and breast cancer. Which is really kind of freaky if you think, oh, say I'm drinking to relax because my day has been stressful, and then I could potentially be, alleviating my stress by going in a direction that will actually cause me really stressful life situation risk in future. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually had no idea about that. Even just knowing those statistics in terms of like half the world doesn't drink, and then like that 4% of all cancer, all new cancer is is alcohol related, that's pretty high if you consider how many cancers there are. There must be like, I don't know this exactly, but there must be like at least tens, if not hundreds of different cancers, specific types. But to have 4% of that just alcohol related it's just kind of nuts to me. It's just quite wow. Um, so I think for me that was like, oh gosh, and I'm not a big drinker by any stretch. Like I really don't drink very much at all. I'll drink intermittently. Um, and it's just because I feel like it or I want to, right? Rather than social pressure or anything like that. And I realized, a while ago, I just completely stopped drinking once I started doing charity mentoring for some teens. And I realized that it took me so long to recover. It took me like 3 days to recover from having a few drinks on like Friday night. And then if I had to go and meet my teens from these underprivileged backgrounds that I mentor, on Monday, I was still a bit like, in the evening on Monday. I mean, that's pretty harsh. And like my health is not super amazing. Like I'm not super fit. I'm not like 20% body fat and like super trim and like fit and exercising every day. Like I am not that person. So I realized that just, maybe made the impact of the alcohol in my body, the strain a little more. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this because, for me, I'm mentoring these kids. This is this kids' lives, right? They're spending their time after really busy days at school coming to meet me for mentoring. Like I want to be on it. I want to be like 100% there for them, not like 80% because I'm a bit groggy because I drank like 3 days ago. So I don't really drink that much at all. But with these facts and informations, like Nazim just said, it's the sugar and alcohol. Hi, Stevie. In case I didn't say hi, Stevie, already. But Nazim just said it's the sugar and alcohol. And I really think that there are a lot of correlations between the sugar and the cancers and all of these different factors. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But it was just really interesting to me. So I said, okay, those are some really interesting facts that I did not know. And good to know. I'm going to write a blog post about it. So I went on to moneyminds.global, the website, www.moneymind.global, where you can find our free samplers and our paid pillars that are launching and rolling out this next 5 months. And I wrote like a blog and I put these stats and I wrote a really boring blog with all this information, but a little plan that I would use if I wanted to adjust my alcohol intake in like an easy way based on this kind of 5-pillar framework that I have created to get fast results in my personal finances with a minimum effort. Okay, so this is really like applicable if anyone else wants to try it as well. So I'll go into that little plan in a sec. But first, I'll just talk about some of the numbers, which will be boring but fast. Hi, Italy. Thanks for joining. So very roughly in numbers, say if we drink about, the average was in this example, okay? And this is not necessarily everyone's average. It was just in this example. It was like, say US 160 a week because of combined, a bottle of wine, in the evening, and then maybe some beers, and then some weekend drinks or things like that. So say if it was like 160 US a week, and that is just a number to start with. That turns into about $10,000 a year that we're just kind of drinking and weeing out. And yes, if we think of it as stress relief, that is one way to look at it. But we kind of want to be conscious of whether we are drinking alcohol because we enjoy it or because we feel like we'll be left out if we don't, or if we're using it as a coping mechanism because our life is really stressful, or things like that. So it's something we want to be aware of in any area of our lives, right? Like I stress eat a lot, and I'm aware of that. And it's something that I want to make sure that I remain aware of. And then I can change if I want, but it's just something for the awareness needs to be there for it to be, it's not a healthy habit, but at least I'm aware of the unhealthy habit that I have. And then if I want to change it, I can choose to do that in such a way that works for me. And I can work with myself to achieve results in that area, as opposed to avoiding it or just not facing it because I don't want to have to make change. Being aware of a problem or an issue or a slightly less positive aspect of our personality, it doesn't mean we have to change it. It just is helpful to be aware of it So, it really depends on us. So, say if we have that 160, if we're having 2 glasses of wine with dinner, or we're drinking a bottle, or whatever it may be, but say roughly 160 a week, that works out to be about $10,000 a year. If we invested that $10,000 over like 25 years at rough 7% like stock market average, it would turn into $54,000. And that's money we're just like weeing away. Now I went and I did the calculation. I was like, wow, okay, that's a fair amount of money, like almost $55,000 from like 1 year of not drinking if you invested it instead for 25 years. So you invest 1 year's worth of drinking and you get $54,000. I was like, oh, I wonder what would happen if you invest like just every month instead with just the amount that you're drinking. So that would be like $640. And it was like, if you invested that every month for the 25 years, so every single year, you end up with closer to $500,000 that you've just weed away over 25 years. So I was like, oh my God, this is like US dollars. So it's US dollars, $160. If you're spending $160 on alcohol and you instead invest that monthly amount over 25 years, it turns into like $500,000 that you just drunk. And that's fine. Because if we say, okay, look, that's really extreme, like there's no way I'm not going to drink for the next 25 years. If we took that $160 and we just halved it and said, okay, I'm going to drink half as much. Instead of having like a bottle of wine, I'm going to do what Nazim has, and I'm going to have half a bottle of wine. Something like that, right? We just drink less on the weekend, or just halve the amount of the $160. It still works out to be $250,000 that we have drunk and weed and don't have in our investment. So even that $250,000, if we are, drinking about $160 worth of wine a week over 25 years, if we had invested that every single month, then we'd have $500,000. But if we only wanted to invest half of that and keep drinking the other half, we'd still have $250,000. And that would cover like half a decade of retirement costs. Like, what were you doing 5 years ago? Imagine if your costs, all of your expenses from like 5 years ago, were covered up to now. So that's how much money we're just drinking, even if that's half the amount, right? Otherwise, it's 10 years ago. If you look at the full amount, full $160 a week, if you look at how that turned into $500,000, that's 10 years ago. What were you doing? If you had all your expenses paid for like up to 10 years, that's how much you've drunk. Isn't that crazy? It's really crazy when you look at the numbers like that. And I've just been asked a political question, but I don't talk about anything to do with politics here. I'm really sorry. If you want political chat, then there's a lot of other broadcasts that are going to be on those types of topics. But I only talk about money, empowerment, financial literacy, and mindset hacks and sort of coachy type stuff. But I definitely don't talk anything politics here. But thank you for asking. I'm sorry. We don't need to feel guilty about any of the choices we make. And please never judge yourself for current habits. Like I said about my overeating, it's an awareness thing. It's just something that we would like to know about ourselves. So if we say, oh, I just want to be drinking this amount and I'm totally fine with spending the money on that amount, then that is awesome. That is great. Or I enjoy spending this money. I enjoy drinking as much as I'm drinking. That is perfect. That is what money is for. What I'm talking about is when we're not aware, or stress coping drinking, or doing things that are causing us risk because we are avoiding or ignoring outcomes of of these things. So say if I'm overeating and I have like maybe like my body fat right now is about 35%. So sorry if you just don't care about that information. But there it is. So it's about 35%. And I was quite sick a few years ago. and it was closer to 43, right? Which is crazy because that just goes into like obese. So my stress and my cortisol, my body was just really, it just like shut down. And so my health stabilized around last year, and then I've started to move towards like a sort of stable body fat, and it's about 35. Now that's average for women, but I would prefer to be like 25 to 30, I think, with the ideal being 20. Now, I'm not doing anything to work towards that, but the fact is that I'm aware of these sort of areas that I might like to move towards. And I know that I'm here right now and I can accept being here and being happy about being here. Like, I'm happy that I'm not sick, but I'm also happy just eating the way I'm eating. Sometimes I stress eat, sometimes I eat better. I know that, and I can make different choices if I want. And that's up to me. So I have that sort of empowerment to be able to choose to make my bad decisions or not. And that's mostly where we want to be. And especially in our, coping habits and mechanisms, and making changes in our lives, we don't want to get a sharp shock. We don't want to suddenly be like, oh my gosh, I have no retirement savings, or there's a cancer risk, or I suddenly have to make a change because the way I've been working hasn't been working. We want to at least be able to say, oh, maybe I need to get onto a healthy diet. Nazim says he's on a healthy diet but needs to limit the wine. The awareness is what we're working towards and aiming for. So the alcohol cost, cancer risk, and savings, that is a bit of an insight into the kind of numbers that we're talking about here. And what I realize is that a lot of people, they don't really feel very stable or secure about knowing what the next steps are to take in this area. So the example that I'm going to give is, if this was my situation, knowing what I know about personal finance stuff in terms of my opinion only, none of this is advice, it is just my opinions based on my own personal opinions with no financial industry qualifications whatsoever, is I would probably, and I wrote this in the blog if you want to go and check it out at moneymind.global after this broadcast, because I need to put the video there. If I was in a situation where I realized I wanted to make a change with my alcohol intake, but I didn't want to make a big change, night, Nazim, I would go about it in a pretty simple way. And I would start out saying, okay, first, I'm going to track the first of 3 steps. First, I'm going to track my expenses. I know this doesn't sound related to alcohol at all, but it is, and you'll see why. So first, I'm going to make no other changes, just going to track my daily expenses and spending, and I'm going to do that for like up to 3 months. So I'll track today, tomorrow, the week, and the month. And then at the end of every month, I want to tally the total amount that I'm spending on wine that week and that month. And then the third and final step is to look at that tally amount and ask, what other items could I buy for that same amount, right? So if we're spending like $160 a week, like what else could I buy for $160? Could I buy like my groceries? Could I buy shoes? Could I buy that bag I want? For a month of that, $640, could I buy that bag that I really want, a designer bag that I'm really eager to get, or whatever, on, secondhand somewhere. But those are the 3 steps. So number 1 is to start expense tracking without making any other changes in your life or your drinking or anything. The second step is to tally after every week and month of expense tracking in that area, in the area of drinking alcohol. And then 3 is to ask at the end of that week or month, what else could I buy for the same amount that I'm spending on alcohol? And if you tally like 3 months worth, right? So I remember the numbers because I wrote them down in my blog, but I couldn't really tell you like 3 months worth of $640 is. But it is enough that we could definitely think, oh, 3 months of $640 a month is pretty sizable money to just be drinking. And that may cover a lot of our living expenses and costs. Even if it's just, $640 a month, that might go towards our like mortgage payments, our groceries, our utilities. Like, it could make differences in other areas of our life that we didn't actually realize we were leaking that money. Even if we don't need to put it anywhere, sometimes we might just like to buy something else nice for ourselves as a reward for taking this action, or cleaning up this area. We might also want to invest it or save it or just do something else with it, right? If we know it, we could choose to keep doing the same, and that's absolutely fine. But we want the choice to be with us and ourselves. So this is the 3 steps that I would take if I were drinking quite a lot and I wasn't aware of it and suddenly wanted to make a change, but I didn't know what to do or how to make the first steps. And I didn't really want to start just not drinking or doing something that I would just stop and start, right? So the reason why this works is because of selective spending. When we suddenly see that we're spending quite a lot in an area we weren't really aware of, we can start to like kind of check ourselves, but naturally. Like, we naturally say, oh gosh, I actually don't want to be spending that much on that. I could be spending it in this other area, that I actually really want that designer bag or whatever it is. And I've been thinking, oh, it's too expensive, or maybe I can't afford it, or maybe I can't buy it right now, or I'll buy it later. You're like, you know what? If I just cut half of my drinking, I could buy that within 2 months. And then suddenly you have some perspective on where that money could go other than drinking, while still enjoying drinking if you just cut it by half. So it's about exploring and exercising our choices, self-awareness, our confidence in this area, and accepting ourselves and the way that we are doing things through choice. Not just because we feel like we have to make ourselves feel bad to make a change. We don't. In our finances, in our drinking life, in any area of our life, if we want to motivate ourselves, a lot of us think we have to beat ourselves up and force ourselves to do stuff. And that's not necessarily the way that is going to get the best results or the most sustainable results. Because if you end up getting stressed out again, you'll just go straight back to drinking. But if you think, oh, I'm making this consciously, I'm still drinking, and I am also buying stuff I like, this works for me. It's more sustainable. And then you can make different choices once you've been doing that for a while and find that it works for you. So what we want to aim for is the next step from where we are now in a way that's going to work, not just get quick results and then go back to however we were doing things before. So with moneymind.global, our financial literacy social enterprise, I use a lot of behavioral psychology, neuro hacks, and these types of insights to be able to help us get easier results in our personal finance based on my 5 pillars of financial stability, which are money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. Once again, money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. You can see those all at moneymind.global, the website. And you can try our free samplers over there as well, because if you feel like you want to make a change in this area or other areas, sometimes just educating yourself is a good way to start, not approaching it by forcing oneself to make big or extreme changes where we usually aim for the ideal, and then we don't get there, and then we feel bad, and then we indulge in the habits that comfort us. So that is often a cycle, and I know it, and I've lived it, and it doesn't work. It really just doesn't get anywhere other than frustration zone. That's where you end up always. And so it's a 5-pillar financial stability checklist that also has 5 free samplers for anyone who feels like taking the next steps in their money area is a bit intimidating. If you just go and do the free samplers in these 5 areas, you'll see how I use this little 5-pillar framework to make it so much easier to just checklist these. Do you know the stuff in this area? Then you can decide how to move forward with the information that you have. And it's information only, not advice. But these free samplers are 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes while you're having your coffee, you'll be able to have a little bit more of an insight on how stable your financial basics are, your financial foundations. So go on over, you can see our Instagram, moneymind.global. So that's at moneymind.global at Instagram, or you can see our website, www.moneymind.global, and try the free samplers there. The paid pillars are also rolling out, and they are an hour each. But right now we're talking about each pillar for 1 month as they roll out, just so that I will have a lot of broadcasts on this topic and can talk about it and create a lot of footage for you to be able to see, like this, that might be helpful for you on your journey in some way or form. So essentially, at moneymind.global, financial literacy social enterprise, our goal is to help people feel more confident and empowered about their own financial decisions. None of it is ever going to be advice. No advice will be given. It is just opinions from my personal journey in this personal finance space, sharing what I use and what I have learned, including biohacks and behavioral psychology and other ways to hack your money life and make it a little bit easier to get results in the basic foundational areas that a lot of us feel like we're a little bit shaky in or lacking one of the 5 pillars. So you'll be able to use this 5-pillar framework. Check yourself. How strong are you in each pillar? Are you happy and confident with where you're at? And if not, what is the next teeny tiny step to take forward so that you can feel a little bit more confident in these areas? It's 5 areas. It's pretty easy to clean up, actually. And while the emotional side of it is what I struggled with most, the actual pillars themselves are pretty plug and play. Anyone can use this framework. Just go and check it out. Try the free samplers to see if it's right for you. Thanks for joining, everyone, and I appreciate you watching. I'm Raven, founder of financial literacy social enterprise, moneymind.global. I'll see you next week.